In this video, I want to talk about my favorite commander deck, one of my favorite commander decks, Obeka or Obeka, Brute Chronologist. 1 blue, black, and a red, 3/4, legendary creature, ogre wizard. With tap, the player whose turn it is may end their turn. What that means is that you exile all spells and abilities from the stack. The player whose turn it is discards down to their maximum hand size. Damage wears off, and this turn and until end of turn effects end. The flavor text is, I'm bored with now. My version of the deck primarily focuses around what Grixis is good at doing, putting things into the graveyard and reanimating it. Red has a lot of temporary effects. You could stick things from your hand, like cards like Sneak Attack. And in this video, I want to run through how I built mine, talking about the lands, creatures, sorceries and instants, artifacts, enchantments, and planeswalkers that I chose for my build. First, let's focus on the creatures. The Puppeteer Click. When it enters the battlefield, put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste, and at the beginning of the next end step, you exile it. So, to keep in mind, for every single card that says until end of turn, if it's your turn, you can tap, choose to end the turn, and you wait until all of those things go on the stack. So at the beginning of the next end step, all of the triggers go on the stack, like a can of Pringles, first in, last out, and once you have all of the effects on the stack, you just click and it all goes away. Meaning that you get to permanently keep your opponent's creature. And it has persist, so even if your opponents do kill it, or you sacrifice it, or it dies to a board wipe, it just comes right back. So if someone board wipes you, if you have this card and the creature you just got from your opponent, let's say you got a Atraxa from your opponent, you can just go ahead and once the board wipe happens, you get to keep the Puppeteer's Click, and you can re-choose to get the Atraxa. Now, granted, you won't have the Obeka, so it'll be until end of turn, but there's some fun things you can do, and you can get the powerful enter the battlefield abilities of the Atraxa that looks at 10 cards and gives you one of each kind. Hellkite Courser, one of my favorite cards. It's also from Commander Legends, one of my favorite cards in the deck, just because no one really expects it to work the way it works, but whenever it enters the battlefield, you may put a commander you own into play. You return to the command zone to begin the next end step, but since the Hellkite gives Obeka haste, you just tap it, and you get to keep it. So now for 6 mana, you got your commander into play, ignoring any amount of commander tax, and you can just keep it in play. Next up is the Fire Dancer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create X tokens that are copies of another target creature you control, where X is 1 plus the number of instant sorcery spells you've cast this turn. They gain haste. Even if you haven't cast any instant or sorcery spells this turn, this is just a good card. It gives you 1 copy every turn, and when you incidentally, you can see how many I have, you're probably going to end up casting one every other turn and just getting extra copies. But just 1 copy of anything, even if it's a legendary creature with a really good enter the battlefield ability, it's just going to be worth it to have this card in play. Junji the Midnight Sky. Flying Menace, whenever it dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life, or put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, you lose 2 life. Because I have a Reanimator deck, not every card in the deck has to work with Obeka, so this just reanimates something from any graveyard onto the battlefield under my control, and if I have anything entering and leaving, because you're making copies of things, if you don't have Obeka in play and you're making copies, you get that ability when they're sacrificed to a card like Sneak Attack, or like sacrificed to the Fire Dancer, make a copy, it immediately dies because you've sack one to the legend rule, and you get to get something else into play, which if you get something that destroys something, it can make combat a little easier since the Fire Dancer activates on combat. Now, I do have a Kiki-Jiki build of mine, so I have cards like Fate Stitcher, and it goes infinite with that. But of course, Fate Stitcher also works with Obeka. Feldon of the Third Path creates a token of a copy of a creature card from your graveyard, except for it's an artifact, and again, it does until the end of turn effects, which the Chronologist can keep into play. Course Connoisseur, whenever it comes into play, you may search your library for a creature card and put that card into your graveyard. If you do, shuffle your library. If you're making copies, you can get a stun and stuff in your graveyard, and mine is a Reanimator deck, so it works, and you can also unearth it just temporarily, but tap your commander, it comes permanently. Body Double, I'm filling up the graveyard, might as well have it copy of any creature in any graveyard, including your opponent, so that's kind of fun. Spark Double, let's get 2 Obekas in play, or just a copy of any other permanent or planeswalker you control, creature or planeswalker, and it would be nice to have more than 1. Plus, the truth is, what you can do with this is if you have 2 and you have 2 of your commander, you can actually diplomatically ask your opponents, hey, do you want to end the turn to avoid some effect that your opponents gave them and just clear the stack? They made a combat they're not actually happy with, the opponent blocks, and they're going to get blown out. You can give yourself some points and be like, hey, if you can do X, Y, Z for me, destroy that thing, I'll go ahead and end your turn. Because it is a May, so they get to choose. Anger, we're filling up the graveyard. We have mountains. Everything can give haste. Molten Duplication from the Breaking News. 2-mana sorcery. Should be with the sorceries, but create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except for it's an artifact and other types. Gains haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of next end step. Just a one-time effect to get to stay into play. Phyrexian Sheoldred. Doesn't work with Obeka, but it's a fun thing to get back with any of your effects and cause your opponent to sacrifice, and you get something for free out of your graveyard. Enter the Battlefield ability. Destroy something, you gain life equal to its toughness, can really reset the game in the mid-game, and just copying this thing is great because every copy with your Fire Dancers or with any of your other effects, destroy something, you gain some incidental life. The Flutist, whenever it enters, gain control of target creature you don't control until end of turn, untap it, it gains haste and Myriad until end of turn. You can gain control of your opponent's things after Myriad puts 3 more copies into play. Tap your commander, you get to keep those tokens permanently. So then you give it back, yeah, your opponent has their 1 card, you have 3 of that, and you get to keep them permanently, which is very strong. Whenever it attacks, you choose target creature you control, then roll a d20. Create a tapped and attacking token of something, except for it has exile as creature at the end of combat, or make one of the tokens and do it again. Again, just getting copies. We can destroy things, we can gain control of things. When it leaves, we're going to get things back. And if we want to keep the token around, our commander can do that for us. This is a cheap little guy. Just makes all of your blue and red spells 1 less to cast. You don't have green, so you don't have superb access to ramp. And since I didn't build this around treasures, this is a good way to do it. And plus, my original version of the build had a zombie theme, but over time, and as cards have gotten better, it's not a zombie build anymore. Mole Drifter enters, draw 2 cards. Just a fun thing to draw extra cards with any of your copying effects, plus you can evoke it for 3. Keep it in play with your commander. Zealous Conscripts. Now this, of course, does give the opponent their card back, because it's not a cancelable effect. Like, it doesn't have a trigger, it just gives it back. But it can, of course, combo with Kiki Jiki and can create some fun things where you just gain control of the cards your opponent thought was going to keep them in play, and heck, now they're not in play anymore. Charmbreaker Devils. Beginning your upkeep, you return a random instant or sorcery card to your hand. Have multiple copies of this because it's not legendary, and you can just basically keep getting the same cards from your graveyard back over and over again. +4/+0 in those games you're playing against opponents that have a lot of creatures. That's just a lot of power. The Lore Mage, tap, not sack, but search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. Just gets you things to reanimate. And then it can get incidental counters if you get something like Wake the Slaughter that has flashback. Identity Thief. This is my favorite version. This is the launch promo. I like that one. That guy in the back has a blurred face. Always reminds me of like a ChatGPT generated image. But whenever it attacks, you may exile another target non-token creature, including your opponent's. If you do, it becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn. Tap your commander. It permanently becomes the copy of your opponent's creature. Wonder, we're putting things in the graveyard. We play instants. Why not give everything flying? Increase your hand size by 7 with the good old Phyrexian legendary blue creature, and then it drops the maximum hand of your opponents by 7. Lazav is a legendary creature shapeshifter and enters Surveil 1/X. It becomes a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except for its legendary. So it can just temporarily, or actually permanently, become a copy of something that's in your graveyard if you don't have another way to get it. I found that my deck needed more cheap things, just a little bit, 1/3. Stops a Ragavan or something else from attacking you, and I just found that my deck needed it, so I found a good 2-drop. The Troll has Swamp Cycling, so it can really act as a swamp in your deck for 1 mana, put into your hand, but it's also a creature you can get into the graveyard early, Swamp Cycle this, and then turn 2 reanimate it. Now you have a 6/5 that has Ultra Menace, because it can only be blocked by 3 or more creatures. The Grave Breaker from Theros Beyond Death. It is lifelink for a 4/4. When it enters, search your library for a card, put it into your graveyard, and shuffle your library. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. We have some incidental things that can cast from our graveyard, but just getting something into play. Plus it being an enchantment creature, I don't think this deck has any Delirium, but technically, if you had, this is 2 of your things for Delirium. Phyrexian Triniform. Whenever it dies, you make 3/3/3s, and it has Encore. Exile it from your graveyard. For each opponent, create a token that attacks that opponent, and they gain haste. You sacrifice the next end step. Dun dun! Your commander stops that. But you have a ton of 9/9s, and when they die, you have a ton of 3/3s. Sphinx of the Second Sun, another Commander Legends card. Flying, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you get an additional phase after this phase. Just gives you more on-tap upkeep and draw steps, draw some cards, untap some things, and just lets you have some fun. The Recruiter also works with Kiki Jiki, but can gain things and go from there. Jin Gataxius. This is just a fun card to have into play and always be getting back. It counters the first artifact, instant, or sorcery, and your opponents are always going to want to do those things. And then if you incidentally copy yours, that's just value on top. But the only way they can get rid of this card is by exiling it, because your deck can just keep reanimating it if you have a build like mine. It That Betrays, 12 mana Eldrazi, fun to cheat into play. But whenever an opponent sacrifices a permanent, you put that card onto the battlefield under your control. And while our deck doesn't have a lot of things that causes our opponent to sacrifice, it just accidentally happens. So, gives them something to think about. Magmatic Force, 8 mana for a 7/7. At the beginning of each upkeep, it deals 3 damage to any target. This does not seem like a very good card because it's so expensive. 8 mana to get into play is a lot. But cheating this thing into play turn 2, turn 3, every upkeep, you just deal 3 damage to something your opponents have. They're just never going to have anything to play. If you think about, I'm 1, 2, 3, and 4. When it's player's 2 turn, and then it gets player's 3 turn, I can deal 3 damage to something player 2 just put into play. And then player 4, I can deal 3 damage to something player 3 just put into play. And it just stacks from there, especially if you can give it Death Touch. The Dead Tide Tap, another Commander Legends card. Exile cards from your graveyard equal to the number of opponents you have. Target creature in your graveyard gains Encore until end of turn, which again creates a copy, attacks your opponents for each opponent, and then you can just use your commander to cancel it all out. Phosphorus, Bronze Blooded, has a sneak attack-like effect, plus it can give all your other creatures haste, which is just good. You get them out of the graveyard, and they come into play, and they have haste. You make copies, they have haste, and you can just attack in. And then the good old Primordial in the back, it's Intimidate. Whenever it enters the battlefield for each opponent, you may put up to 1 target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So it gets 3 things into play with it, and then every single time you copy it, it gets 3 more things, which is just very strong. And those are all of the creatures in my Obeka deck. Next up, I have the Sorceries and Instants. Wake the Slaughter. Choose up to 2 target creature cards in your graveyard. An opponent chooses one of them. Return that card to your hand. Return the other to the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. Exile to begin next end step. And it has flashback. You can get into your hand, put into play for cheap, or put 1 into play, and your commander can keep it in play permanently. Faithless Looting. The really nice foil full art. I'm a sucker for the full art versions of cards. But you get to draw cards, you get to discard cards, fills your graveyard, and if you accidentally milled it or discarded it to another effect, you can flashback it. Cauldron Dance, you can cast only during combat. Return target creature card from your grave to the battlefield, it gains haste. And then put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, it gains haste, but you sacrifice both to the next end step. Oh, turns out you guys sneak attack something in, reanimate something, your commander keeps it in permanently. Ideas Unbound. Draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards at the end of the turn. This really says now, at the beginning of your next end step, you discard 3 cards. You can go ahead and cancel that with your opponent, with your commander, which just means for blue, you drew 3 cards. 1 more blue than Ancestral Recall, but it's as good as we're going to get. Heat Shimmer, for 3 mana, create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it has haste, and at the beginning of your end step, exile this permanent. Again, creates a copy of target creature, any creature in play, and your commander can keep it. Sinister Waltz. Choose 3 target creature cards in your graveyard. Return 2 of them at random to the battlefield, and put the other in the bottom of your library. This doesn't do anything super fun with your commander, but getting 2 things into play at the same time, plus adding a little bit of randomness to your game, never really hurt anyone. Last Chance, the Dominaria Remastered full art. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. And when that trigger goes on the stack, end the turn with your commander. Careful Study. Draw 2, discard 2. We want to be drawing cards. We want to be discarding the things we want to reanimate. It's a good way to do it. Buried Alive helps us put 3 creature cards from our graveyard from the library into our graveyard. Glorious End ends your turn. At the next end step, you lose the game. Just end the turn for one of your opponents. Stop them from casting the board wipe or something that's going to stop you. And then go ahead and tap your commander to Prevent you from losing. This is a removal, but it's also on discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards, which we just want to be drawing and discarding. Always cycling things into our graveyard. Come back, Ron. Destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into your graveyard this way, put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So you can destroy anyone's creature and put it into play under your control permanently with your commander. Reanimate. Everyone knows what Reanimate does. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. You have 40 life. You can just go crazy. Reckless Handling can search for any of our artifact cards, which I'll show in a second. And then you have to discard a card at random. Hopefully it's not your artifact, or it's a creature you can get back. Hate Mirage. Choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. For each of those creatures, create a token that's a copy of that, except it gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step, tap your commander, keep them permanently. Incarnation Technique. Demonstrate. Mill 5, then put a creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield. Puts 2 things into the battlefield, mills 10 for 5 mana, and sure, your opponents could do the same thing. But if you're demonstrating it to one of your opponents, they're probably already on your team and not going to do something that's going to hurt you. Unmarked Grave. Search your library for a non-legendary card and put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle. You can just go get one of our toolbox cards. That's all of my sorceries and instants. Next up, I have my artifacts. Sundial of the Infinite, 1, end the turn. If you don't have your commander in play, this thing can go ahead and end the turn for you. Persist. Returns a non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a // counter on it. One-time effect, but it can just get the train started. Is it Signet? Let's ramp. We don't have green, so let's ramp the way we can. Talisman of Creativity, non-green ramp. Rakdos Signet, non-green ramp. Blade of Cells, equipped creature has Myriad. Again, it makes 1 token attacking the other players. Obeka can go ahead and make copies of it and keep those permanently. Soul Ring, every deck plays Soul Ring. Mimic Vant, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vant to its owner's graveyard. 3, tap, make a token that's a copy of the card exiled with it. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of its end step, but our commander keeps it in play. Arcane Signet. Mirror Box. The legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, and then each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. We're copying lots of legendary things, and it would be great to keep those in play, and Mirror Box can let us do that. And then Swiftfoot Boots keeps our commander in play and can help us use it the turn it comes in. Those are all of my artifacts. Plenty of them are ramp, but some interesting things. Next up, my enchantments, only 4, because we are playing a non-really enchantment-heavy color set. Sneak Attack is 1 red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice that creature at the beginning of the next end step. 1 red, cheats any card in your hand. Tap your commander, end the turn. You're good to go. Rhystic Study. Every deck probably should just play Rhystic Study. Extravagant Replication. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. Not temporary, just keeps getting. We play a lot of really expensive cards that we're going to want to have copies of, and this can do it for us. And then Splinter Twin for all of these Splinter Twin combos. I have 2 Planeswalkers, Saheeli Ray and Ashiok. This can go ahead and mill us cards, and then exile each opponent's graveyard. Just give us some incidental value, and same to that top ability. In the early game, people are demonic tutoring, searching for land, searching for artifacts, enchantments, creatures, just doing all kinds of stuff in their graveyard. Every color can search for lands now with the newest set, Final Fantasy. Red can search for mountains put into your hand. White can search. Green can search. Black searches for anything. Blue can search for instant sorceries. This just stops them from doing that. Saheeli Ray, really that last ability is the middle ability is the one that we care about. It makes copies of things and can start some combos. Then last up, I will quickly go through the lands, just playing lots of value lands that I own. Sulphur Falls, Misty Rainforest. My play group is okay with proxies. As long as we own 1 copy of the card, we can put in all of our decks. So Misty Rainforest. Command Tower. I'm a sucker for the Theros Beyond lands. So Mountain. Frostboreal Snarl. So you can reveal an instant or mountain. An island or mountain, put into your hand, it enters untapped. Luxury Suites. Tainted Peak. Dragon Skull Summit. Training Center. Another swamp. Xander's Lounge. I just opened this in a Streets of New Capenna draft I did over the last weekend. Snow-Covered Island. Drowned Catacombs, Snow-Covered Mountain, Marsh Flats, Snow-Covered Mountain. There's nothing in the deck that cares about these. I just like playing all of them. Plus, you can make copies of permanents in this deck, and one of the, it's not this card, but one of the cards either used to be in the deck or is in the deck can copy any permanent, and one time I copied my opponent's Field of the Dead, and I was able to keep making zombies off of it. Exotic Orchard, Snow-Covered Island, Swamp, Island, Sakuzan, just make some 1/1s, get some value. Sulphurous Springs, Island, Island, Swamp, Mountain, Steam Vents, Shivan Reef, Scalding Tarn, Underground River, Haunted Ridge, and Snow-Covered Island. That is my Obeka Commander deck. You let me know what cards you think I could improve the deck with and what you're going to build your deck with. Let me know down below if you are looking for ideas or if you're watching this video to improve your Obeka Brute Chronologist deck. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comments below. Thank you for watching.